Okay friends, it's time to get started on our job. One of the first things you want to do is safely raise and support the rear of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground, and typically I like to have the suspension hanging. After that, I'm going to move along to removing all of these lug covers here. We'll remove the center cover, and then we'll remove the lug nuts as well. Now let's remove all 4 of our 19mm lug nuts. I'm just going to start this back on here so I can finish removing the wheel. Let's take one of those lug nuts again, and we're going to start it on here. Now the next thing I want to do is remove my drum. To do that, I'm just going to use a hammer. I'm going to give it a couple loving bonks in this area right here, being very careful not to damage any of my lug studs along the way. Now that we have the drum off of there, the next thing we want to do is go ahead and spray down the inner area where the bearing meets up against the backing plate. When you're using any type of chemical, make sure none of it gets on any of your braking shoes, the forward one or the rear. Now let's move along to the back side. If you were to look at the back, you're going to find that you have 4 studs that come through with mounting nuts on the back. Right here, here, and then 2 located directly behind here. We'll use a 15mm to remove all 4 of these. Now, as you can tell for us, the stud came right out of there. That's okay. I'll just go ahead and set this aside and move along. Once you have all the mounting hardware off the backside, let's continue on with a hammer. We're going to carefully give this a couple loving bonks just around the sides. Try to break it free. After that, we should be able to pull it off. Something that I want you to pay attention to is as you're trying to remove the bearing, you might happen to notice that the whole backing plate with the shoes come off as well. If that happens, just be very careful because you do have brake lines along the backside. There it is, friends. If when you were removing the bearing, you went ahead and pulled out the studs at the same time, you're going to have to go ahead and hold onto the stud with something such as possibly a vise or even locking pliers right down along here. Then you'll continue on with a 15mm to fully remove the nut because we will be reusing all 4 of our mounting nuts. Let's go ahead and clean up this area a little bit, get it prepped for our wheel bearing. Okay friends, now it's time to install our brand new rear wheel bearing. Looking at the back, you can tell that the bolts are oblonged. They're not necessarily perfectly squared. Looking at the backing plate, you can see exactly how the bearing needs to fit into position. Let's go ahead and take it, slide it right in there. Now we can make our way to the back side. We'll use some red thread locker and put on our nuts. Once we have them all started, we'll go ahead and bottom them out, and then we'll torque each of them to 33 foot-pounds. Now once you have them torqued, the next thing you want to do is continue tightening them an extra 30 degrees. It's really not very much. Now it's going to be time to go ahead and put our drum back on there. But I want you to look at the inside area. The area specifically that touches up against that brand new wheel bearing. We want to make sure it's clean and free of any debris. So we're going to go ahead and sand that down. You also want to make sure you don't have any brake debris inside the drum area. Also, if there's any rust buildup, it really only makes sense to go ahead and take that off now. I'm going to be replacing this, but for you, go ahead and clean it down. Now let's put some copper never sees on our hub mating surface. Before we put our drum on there, I want to talk to you about the adjustment for your rear brakes. To adjust it, you're going to come right to this area, but you're going to come through from the back side. On the back of the backing plate, there's a little rubber boot that you can go ahead and take off of there, come on through with a screwdriver, and you should be able to adjust this. Now, when you adjust it, go with the assumption I'm coming from the back side here. All you want to do is just carefully get on this, and you're going to start spinning it so you listen to clicking. Every time you hear a click, it's going to be adjusting these shoes out a little bit. If you find that you over adjust it and you can't really spin the drum very much, or it feels like it's under resistance, you're going to have to de-adjust this. To do that, you're going to turn it in the opposite direction, but what you'll find is this area right here will make it so it does not want to de-adjust. So what you're going to have to do is come from the backside with a 90-degree pick like this, and you're just going to go ahead and push that away. I'll show you real quick. Now let's go ahead and clean down the inside of our brand new drum. All right, once you have that clean, we can go ahead and get this on the vehicle. While we're doing this, we can also do our pre-adjustment for this. So all I'm going to do is take my drum, I'll put it right over my studs and over the shoes. Now at this point, I'm going to carefully press it up against here as hard as I can, and I'm going to try to spin it. I'm trying to listen to see if I can hear any noise. Right there, I can hear a little bit of drag, but it doesn't feel like there's very much drag. The important thing about drag is the more drag you have, the more heat you're going to create. So if you try to grab onto this and you try to turn it, it's very stiff like this. Well, obviously that's going to be no good. It's going to create drag, it's going to create a lot of heat, and you're going to have some serious issues. If that was the case, you just want to de-adjust it a little bit. All you have to do is just go ahead and take off your drum a couple times, on and off, and you can do your pre-adjustment. After that, once the drum's on and the wheel's on, you're going to continue on with your regular adjustment from the back, as I told you. Once you've finished making your adjustments, go ahead and reinstall your rubber protective plug. Now, once you have everything put back together, just double check your work. You want to make sure everything's functioning as it needs to do. Of course, like I keep saying, when you do any of this, you're going to want to make sure you do the exact same thing on the other side of the vehicle. At this point, we're ready to start putting on our wheels. We'll put this up into place, start on all 4 of our 19mm lug nuts, we'll bottom them out, and then get the wheel back on the ground so we can torque it to manufacturer's specification. Now with the wheels safely back down on the ground, let's continue on to torquing each of our 4 19mm lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Torqued. Of course, if you have a hubcap of some sort, you're going to want to put that on now. The areas to pay attention to would be the area for the valve stem. You want to find that on your wheel. That's the area that air gets put in. Let's go ahead and line that up. Once you have that lined up, the lug nuts should line up with their corresponding covers as well. Now we'll just tighten these up so the hubcap doesn't rattle while we're driving down the road. Okay friends, we got our wheel bearing installed. What's left to do now? Now of course you're going to want to hop inside the passenger compartment and pump up the brake to make sure it's nice and firm. After that, take it for a road test, make sure you don't hear any funny noises, and get yourself safely down to your local alignment shop. Thanks for watching.